What's going on, world? I go by the name of Chris.
I'm Kanisha.
I'm Arian.
Tony.
It's Rebecca.
It's your boy Terry.
And we are the Skinners.
The Protos.
And we are the
A
A-Team.
Team.
And this is...
And this is...
And this is the Marriage Plug.
The Marriage Plug.
The Marriage Plug.
It's like a fairy tale, but this ain't a movie. Yeah. The way you make me feel, you do something to me. Yeah, yeah. I want my hands locked in yours with everything in my...
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Marriage Plug. We are so excited to address what we're going to address. We got a lot of things to unentangle. So you're allowed to laugh. All right, cool. Okay, so listen, guys, we are going to address a few different topics, things that are really on our hearts and on our chest. Obviously, you know, we got a lot of information in the news with Will and Jada. Kanisha, man, you know, go ahead. Let's talk about how much we love the Smiths first.
Okay, so disclaimer, you guys, even though we are going to be talking about like recent events, right, that happened in Will and Jada's marriage, this is a disclaimer that this is not to judge them. This is not a dig. We absolutely love and respect the Smith family for all their contributions to music, to our culture, movies, the list goes on and on and on. So this in no way, shape, or form is to judge them or to talk about them or pick them apart or analyze their marriage in any way, shape, or form. We are the Marriage Plug, so we would be remiss to not talk about different topics as they come up, especially as they're related to marriage. So, of course, all of us are on social media, so we all see our friends talking about it. You know, did you see what they said and this and that? So we're going to talk about it from our take, right? From our point of view. But again, keeping in mind that we have nothing but love and respect for the Smith family, the entire Smith family. So
100%.
That's our disclaimer, right? 100%. We love y'all if y'all ever see this. So
Love you.
putting that out there.
But no, I was gonna say, like, Kanisha, you like hit the nail on the head by saying that. And one of the things that we wanted to kind of break down and give the Marriage Plug spin on things is at the end they said we ride together, we die together.
Bad marriage for life. And then they did the fist bump.
Boom.
Right?
So, like, again, we're not picking this apart. So from the Aaron's perspective,
Yeah.
we will say how we understand where they're coming from. So first of all, it's the movie that, you know, that's the movie. And
Right.
me and Chris was actually talking about this
Early
the other
morning.
night.
It was
This morning.
today,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. And I was saying, like, well, what is your take on this? And he'll tell you himself, but he was talking about how, you know, Jay-Z was talking about, nah, I ain't coming, me and my wife beefing. You know what I mean? And I was like, that's true, because there's things that do come up and happen, but that doesn't necessarily mean that every single day, 24/7, your marriage is bad. It just means that when they do come up, you're willing to rock it out if it's no abuse or anything that is like that or that shape or form, or fashion, whatever.
You got it. All right,
Yeah, I couldn't say it.
No, I mean, so I I went to Jay-Z's line in the song "Friends" from the Carter album. He said, you know, if me and my wife beef, basically nobody's leaving. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is our relationship. We gonna fight in this relationship. We gonna do everything we got to. So my takeaway from it was, I thought it was a dope statement personally. A lot of my friends were like, no, like that's a horrible statement. But I think that, you know, it may have been read a little bit too deep into. I think that to have the tenacity, I think that's the best word that I could think of, tenacity, to fight in a relationship when you feel like you were done wrong, or, you know what I'm saying, even when you've done wrong. Because a lot of times when I think someone does wrong in a relationship, that's also they're out to escape the relationship and the responsibilities. And sometimes it's more difficult to accept responsibility and recover and then re-earn that person's trust and respect, you know, especially if you don't have a lot of those type of relationships where you had to fight for them. So I think it's important on both people's part, on the victim's part to forgive, and then on the suspect, I guess the suspect, the person that's sus, right? Like, I think it's also a responsibility on their part to accept responsibility and to earn that trust, however long it takes and whatever it takes to get there. So that's my take on it personally. I think the statement was dope. And I think it was also a good play on words too. What, you got any more to say? Y'all got any comments?
No,
I do.
KP, what's up? Her hand was raised, AP.
Unless you want to go, sis.
Oh, baby.
So for me, I did cringe a little bit. I did when I heard it, but I knew where it was coming from though. I knew they did that. Of course, it's the slogan for the movie Bad Boys. Absolutely love every single Bad Boys that they ever made. But for me as a married woman, I think I cringed because I guess I looked at it from a point of view for people who are not married. And how they viewed that. Like, this is what I gotta look forward to, because Will and Jada are the staple. Mm-hmm. Right? Especially for like Black marriages. Like, people strive to have their relationship like Will and Jada. Okay? Including me, I feel like before all this, but again, that's life though. I'm not saying that they're no longer a staple because everybody goes through different things. But what I will say is that we just have to be mindful of what this looks like on the outside. And I hate to say it like that because you don't want to necessarily live your life for what other people think, right? In a lot of cases, who cares what people think? But at the same time, you have to realize that you are a model. If people are not married or if they strive to be married, and we all are models as well. So that's why I was cringing, because I knew that people who weren't married, single or dating or whatever, they were gonna look at it like, oh my God, like, are you serious? Is this what people do? And yes, real life happens all the time. Like, there is no such thing as a perfect marriage. There is no fairy tale when it comes to marriage. You are gonna go through some things. I think all 6 of us on here, all 3 couples represented today, have gone through things. So it's not to say that you are not going to go through things, but you just have to be mindful of when you go through things. You don't want to make your partner look bad necessarily. Sometimes you do have to go through things. And I don't want to say behind closed doors, because you also do need to vent to people. Like, all of us, we talk to each other, we give each other the real on things that we're going through. It just sucks because when you're a celebrity, you are in that public eye. So people are going to be looking at your relationship through a microscope, and they're going to be literally dissecting every single thing. And none of us know what that's like to be a celebrity and have to live our lives under the public eye. So that is why we're being very, very mindful of what we say, because we don't want to be that person that's dissecting every little thing. But I will say that when you are in a relationship, whether you are married or not, you do have to be real about certain things. You just have to be careful and be mindful about who you're being real with. Yeah. Because I do realize that a lot of times, even when we were going through different things, sometimes we heard from our friends what they were going through. It's like, dang, we're not the only ones. Yeah. So that is why you do have to be real with other people. You just have to be selective in knowing that that person that you're venting to is actually your friend, right? And they actually have your best interests at heart. Yeah. It's unfortunate that you can't do that as a celebrity.
That's real.
Everybody and their mama, right, got an opinion about what's going on. So that's unfortunate. But for those of us that are not celebrities, you do need to talk about it. You know what I mean? Whether it's with another couple or whether it's with a therapist or something. But if you keep that stuff in and you don't talk about it, I promise you it will come up. It will rear its ugly head in some crazy ways that you may not even think about. But you do have to be honest, and you do have to be real. That is one of the things that I appreciated from Will and Jada's talk, is that it was raw, it was unfiltered, it was real. Yeah. And they were very real with each other. Again, it was just unfortunate that, of course, everybody, the whole world had to see it. Yeah. But
I was about to say, Tony, did you want to say something, or I could go?
All I was gonna say was that I respect them. For them to even have that open dialogue like that. And honestly, none of this would have came out if August didn't feel the way that he felt. And which we can't blame him either, because he was broken. He felt some type of way where it was he felt like he was taken advantage of. And especially by being with an older woman at that time, it was like she's seen all of his vulnerabilities, and to him, it felt like he was used. But for Will and Jada to even open up and even show the world, even though everybody's laughing at it, to show the world hey, we can sit down, we can sit face to face, and we can have this conversation, man and woman up about it, and go from there and move on and either make our marriage even better, or we can go our separate ways.
Yeah, I think for me, it's kind of how I felt was kind of what Kanisha said when she was saying, as far as I understood the play on words because of the movie, but also as far as the people watching the Red Table, and then having a platform in which that they do, you do have to be mindful in the way that you message things. Because I saw even on my timeline from, I think it was a young man who is not married or dating, anything like that, and it was like, so this is bad marriage for life. This is what I have to look forward to if I have a desire to be married. And I think that is so dangerous, because from a spiritual perspective, you know, God did not create marriage for you to be suffering. You know what I'm saying? There is a purpose behind marriage. Now, also, granted, we can't expect to constantly be happy in our marriage either, because there's ebbs and flows in a marriage. But as far as saying bad marriage for life, that sounds like you tarrying on your face with skid marks, as we like to say, every day. And that's not the case. And so that is why I was shocked. Like, my mouth was open when they said that. I said, huh? And then you fist bump to that, like, we're in this bad marriage together, man. What? Like, you know what I mean? Like, to me, it almost felt like they were helpless. You know what I'm saying? It almost was like they didn't have any hope that their marriage could get better by making that statement. And for me, that is why I felt like it was so cringeworthy, as Kanisha said, because especially for a person who may be in a marriage right now when it's rocky and they don't see a way out of it, and then they're like, so that's just what it is. Especially if people, you know, look at Will and Jada as an icon couple, but I also think that's very important as to why we don't need to idolize relationships. Because, or put people on a pedestal, because at the end of the day, what we all have in common is our humanity, and we all fail, we all struggle. But that also, once again, we're not going home with these people. We see what they want us to see. You know what I'm saying? And I think that is why that is so important to remember, that these people are also human, but also we're seeing the best parts of their marriage that they don't mind giving a screenshot and a snapshot of. And then once you idolize them, they're going to fail you every time. Whenever you idolize somebody, or you know, they're going to fail you every time. And I think that was just, that ending of that conversation was a missed opportunity to encourage someone that it can get better. You know what I'm saying? Because you talking like you healed, but the way that you end that conversation does not sound like you are. Yeah, that's what I want to say. You say to me?
I mean, the only thing I can say is I agree partially about commending them for having like an open dialogue about it, but I don't think necessarily that they had to have that dialogue live in front of the whole world, because I felt like it turned to, it was supposed to be an honest conversation between them two, into a petty conversation between them two, and to, I'm gonna get you back and you already got me back, and all those type of comments. So I feel like that conversation just between them two and their family would have been way better and way more healthier for their relationship and their marriage. And then the bad marriage for life, I ain't with that one. Like, I ain't getting married to be in a bad marriage for life. Like, there's no way I'm in my whole life bad marriage. I ain't doing that.
Like, maybe like a week out of 2 years, but like not like
I can do a bad day, I can do a bad season, I can do a bad month, but bad marriage for life, we gotta sign some papers. This to go.
I dig that.
So even with that, let's talk about the rocky times. You know, like we said, we're in marriage, in any relationship, you are going to hit rocky times, rough patches, whether it's because of disagreements or people experiencing things that didn't anticipate experiencing when they got married. Life happens. And but the thing is remembering or really discussing and coming together on how in which we're going to go through those things. You know what I'm saying? So although we will never know, because we're not fortune tellers of what our future holds, however, how we navigate and go through our troubles, that's really important to discuss. I know people talk about non-negotiables, but even just the way in which we argue and have disagreements, how do we move through that together so that it's not a bad marriage for life? And none of us have experienced separation, so we can't talk from that perspective. However, we have gone through rough patches, and clearly we're all still here. So we've gotten through it some way, shape, or form. And so we kind of just want to share some ways in which that, we might have had a struggle, but then came back together. What are some ways that we've done that?
So, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, so for us, and I thanks Rebecca for opening that up. We all have different ways of how we go through things. Like, it won't just be, this is the picture cookie cutter way of going through things. It's not like that. Whatever relationship you have, whatever marriage you have, what's for you and how you go through things is for you. So for us, I do know, like, space is important. There has been times where, Chris will go to his man cave and I'll stay in my room or stay in a living room. Regardless of where we go, we have that separate space. You know what I mean? Even to, leaving the house at times. And I'm comfortable with saying that because, again, me and Chris will always tell you, no matter what video that we air or have, that things do happen. You know what I mean?
We had a bad rough patch that involved her saying, like, I need that. I don't need a room away from you. I need some distance between us. And she did. She got her stuff. She went to a hotel. And I'm like on the phone with my friends, like, yo, she just, like, I'm exaggerating. She just moved out. They're like, she moved out. I'm like, she got all her bags. The TV gone. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're like, you know what I'm saying? Break this down. I'm like, she went to another hotel room, and one of my friends was like, because I had two guys who I was like leaning on heavy. And one of them was like, man, that should be you. If anybody need to leave, you need to leave the house because you can protect yourself, a little bit better than she can until y'all seen her shoot a gun. Then you think differently. But so I'm like, I call her. I'm like, man, let me go to the hotel. She like, no. And furthermore, I'm not answering my phone for you. So don't call me. Like, I need this. This is what I need. And she did say this, though, that made me feel better about it. She said, this is what I need for us to work. And it was one of those things like, you know what? If you can't respect that, like your whole perspective, I'm full of Jay-Z quotes. Your whole perspective is whack. Yeah. But I will say this too. I was fighting for it too. I still sent somebody to her room. Like, I need you to go have this conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like, I need you to check on her, make sure she's good. And then we was good. And it obviously, we just celebrated 5 years over the weekend. You know what I'm saying? Thank God. But like you said, like, there are rough patches and stuff does happen. And when it does happen, I think it's important to remember why you signed up for this in the first place. You know what I mean? And the best thing in all of this craziness that was going on, the best thing that could have been said is, I'm leaving right now for a couple of days. I think for a couple of days for us to get back together, because that secured everything. Just I'm leaving is not good enough. You know what I'm saying? Who knows if you're going to,
what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? So that's why people can get entangled, because it's not clear. The rules of engagement are not clear.
And just one last thing to add on that is a great point. It's even though you're mad and, there may be times where you like, I can't deal with them, it still is a good idea to still communicate. Communication. If you do leave, let them know where you're going. Say, I need time. Just be open and real. It's not enough people being upfront in their marriages. And I think that's a lot of times where you can't heal in that time where you're supposed to heal. You just still scarred and all hard and calloused, you know what I mean? Because you're not being real and upfront. And it turns into a malicious tit for tat thing, you know.
And just one more thing. I think that too often in marriages, we treat them like casual relationships. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we can use manipulation and fear tactics to try to force healing, where that's not going to force healing. That's going to cause more confusion and more chaos. So, you know, when she said, I'm doing this so we can get back together versus I'm doing this and who knows what happens. She knew in her mind she was doing this so we could get back together versus just leaving it out there and then seeing what happened. You know, I think the protos were going to speak. I think y'all were going to speak to it. Okay, go ahead. Y'all got it.
Yeah, and I love that you guys mentioned that, you know, even though we went through this rough patch, we had some type of like vision in mind, right? Like, okay, so even though this is going on right now, this is what I want to see happen. But for us to get to that point, this is what we need to do. Because I'm big on, like, I hate complaining with no solutions. I think that's just how I am, like, personality-wise. Like, if there's nothing that we're going to do to fix it, I don't even want to hear about it. You know, why are we going to complain about it? And I will say for us, like, when we hit our rough patch, we were being honest. You know, we also have really, really good friends out here, our support system. We love them so much. One of our friends, like, came and got our daughter. And she was just like, look, I'm taking her with me. Y'all go ahead and work out what y'all need to work out. She's going to be with us, you know? And, like, for that time period, it was kind of awkward. You remember that? We didn't even talk. Like, we ate, you know, I cooked and we kind of just looked at each other like, so what we going to do? You know, at the beginning, it was really weird and really awkward, you know, but we kind of, you know, really started to talk it through. Even though this is what we're going through right now, it's not going to always be like this. And you do have to remember what you signed up for and why you got married in the first place. Yeah. So because I love you so much and I really, really want this to work, I think that we talked about this before, that is love enough? No, it's not. Yeah. It's not, because you still going to have to learn how to get through those rough patches, even though I love you. So I love you, but this is going on. Now what do we do? What's next? So our conclusion was, okay, well, we need to go to a marriage counselor then, you know, again, right? If that's the case, if this is what we're going through, how else do we make this work? You know, I pray for you. We pray for each other every single day. But unfortunately, during this time, you know, pandemic, you can't even go to church, right? Even though the church is in your home. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. You know, we had to find some other kind of solution. You know, what are we doing here? Because if we're trying to stay together for the long haul, what we're doing is not working. So that means that at this point, we need to switch gears. So for us, you know, that's really what it was. And I think that we had a lot of time to be able to talk because our daughter wasn't here. I think that when you are, you know, focused on one common goal, whether it's your children or whether it's your career or whatever that may be, sometimes you can take the focus off of your relationship. And I think that was one of the things that we needed to do, was to get back to our relationship and why we got married in the first place, and realizing that, and I believe that we said this before too, you know, that you are on the same team. You know, sometimes you got to realize what the real battle truly is, and it's not each other. You know, it may be, you know, other things, but sometimes it's easier to be able to identify what that thing is, you know, not that it's the person, but it's that thing that they may be going through or dealing with, and attack that thing, if that makes sense, you know, together.
But you got to do it together.
You have to do it together.
Because if, you know, you're doing it, like, it's one thing when we have our individual space, but if we don't, if we go to bed with that problem on our mind, like, that's still, that thing will continue to keep lingering. So if we gotta handle it right then and there, or somehow, because I mean, I done heard from older people, you know, oh, my friend, they had a bad argument, he went to bed and then he died and had a stroke in his sleep. Now she's, you know, now she's suffering and you know, aching because of that, because she didn't have an opportunity to actually communicate with her spouse. You know what I mean? So I've never wanted that for us. I always wanted to keep some type of open dialogue. I hate confrontation. And I really don't like raising my voice. If I raise my voice, then it's an issue. But I like to talk like this, you know, and sometimes women can continue to raise their voice, and in a way it makes men feel like we in a corner. So it's like, hold on, like, you know, like you said this, you said that, now you dodging all the, you know what I'm saying? So now in your mind, you ready for comeback. So I mean, But for us, like, and then that's when we started texting and communicating that way too, to avoid that confrontation like that. Because at the end of the day, we love each other that much. Well, I never want to disrespect her and she disrespect me, because then it's like, dang, like you looking down on me as, you know, Joe Blow on the street or something. Like that's crazy. Like, I'm your husband. So.
You don't do that no more though. Remember that last thing? He's like, what you want to talk about? You came in the room like, what's up? What'd you say? I'm like, oh, give me a second. Yay, I'm used to, you know, we're supposed to text a little bit first. Like, what's up? What'd you say?
Sometimes my wife lets it build up. And so I'm like, nah, let's get this right now. Let's get it over with. Go to bed, go to sleep. Let's get it over with.
And, you know, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about as far as when we were going through our rough patch. One of the main things that I learned, and Kerry can share what he learned and kind of what we dealt with, was the communication. When we talk about communication is key, it is so important. For an example, when Tony said that Kanisha allows us to, like, had been allowing us stuff to just build up and then she just bursts and you like, what the heck happened? And I know one of the things that I learned going through our rough patches that I was doing the same thing. When I had a miscarriage, I was really struggling and I stopped talking about it. And that allowed resentment to come into my heart and I wasn't sharing what I needed from him. You know what I'm saying? How can I expect him to meet a need when I'm not sharing my need? You know what I mean? And that's what really I've recognized, and what we recognize is that how much communication, even when it hurts, we gotta talk. We have to have 100% transparency, full on honesty. And that was something that we really had to struggle through. You know, it was nice that he was sleeping in one room and I was sleeping in another, but we was gonna figure this thing out, you know what I'm saying? And so for me, I think the biggest thing that came out of our rough patch is how honest we have to be. Yeah. Like it has to be 100% honesty, no holding back, even if it hurts, share. Because ultimately when it talks about being able to be completely naked in front of each other, it's not just physically naked, but emotionally naked, spiritually naked, and really being vulnerable about what's going on. And so for us, I think one of the which definitely prayer and God, all right, for sure. But then also communication, even oversharing, you know what I'm saying? Just so that there's no gray, everybody clear. But I would say that's one thing that really helped us get through our rough patches, how we shifted our communication. Not just the bare bone, no, the nitty gritty of communication. Is there anything you want to share?
I'll say, well, I agree with you as far as it was mostly communication and praying and God, because like any issue you go through marriage and you got to find out what's wrong with you first before you can bring it to the other person. And then also, like when you talk to God, he'll put whatever's wrong with you straight in front of you.
Yes,
like it was times I'm praying like what's going on, and also he'll bring y'all back together. It's times I'm like, what's going on? I go in the car and out of nowhere our marriage song is on the radio, like what we dance to. I'm like, really, God? I'm mad. I just jumped in the car to drive off and get some air, but now I gotta go back in because God didn't send me back in to have this conversation with my wife, and it's the reason why he did that. So I'll say to continue to pray if something happened, and God to work out of it.
And that's real. You be praying and think you praying for the other person. And I think like either we've had that conversation privately as a friend group, or we talked about that in a video when God be like, oh, let's talk about you, sis.
Right.
You talk about all the stuff he ain't doing and blah, blah, blah. Baby, let me get you together, okay? And you be like, that.
Be like, hello? I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
somebody else is challenging you on your thoughts. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
When you got that Holy Ghost inside of you, be like, hey, hello, Rebecca. You come into the room real fast, sis. What are you doing? You know what I'm saying? And I mean, get you all the way together. There you up in the night, in the midnight hour.
and that's real because we're talking about like healing, you know, whether it's spiritual or whether it's in our relationship. Healing doesn't feel good. I think that healing is a word that people look at and are like, oh, healing is ugly, it hurts, it stinks, it's all that. It's not cute. It's not cute. It does. It's exposing, you know, all those different things. But one thing that I will say, and this kind of brings us to our next and our last point, is that when you are healing, even though it's ugly, it's not cute, you know, it hurts. But when we're thinking about like growth and change, nobody grows when they're stagnant, okay? If you're going to grow and if you're going to change, you got to get through that hurt. You got to get through that ugly period. You got to be willing to be uncomfortable in order to grow. That's it. Period. That's all. Okay. When it comes to growth, you're going to be uncomfortable, and that just is what it is. So, but that also brings me to like one of the good points about, you know, the conversation that Will and Jada had, because I think a lot of people are dissecting it in a, you know, negative kind of way. But there's a positive too because of the growth, right? Like in their relationship, whether it's ugly, nasty, whatever you want to call it, they're still here. They're still together, and they're trying to grow together, whatever that looks like for them. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like in every relationship, it takes growth and it takes healing. One of those things that, again, that I will say, you know, in our relationship, that growth and that healing is a beautiful thing. When you can get through that thing, like I see the ugliest part of you, I see the nastiest part of you, and I still want you. Yeah. I still choose you. I still want to do life with you. I don't care what you're going through. Like, for real.
That's how I feel.
That's okay.
Look at her put them in the headlock.
It's not cute. Look.
Yes.
Look. Okay, we don't go through mental illness and all that stuff. Being real, I got some mental things that I see an individual therapist. No shame. Okay. No shame. But I mean, when you still choose that person, there's nothing like that. And that's how you know that marriage is ordained by God, because there's nothing like that feeling on earth. When somebody sees the nastiest part of you and they're like, I'm still here. I still choose you. So for us, I mean, you get through that. You can get through anything, you know? So it just kind of course, takes a few bumps to get there, you know, along the way. But that's also testimony too. You know, being able to speak to those parts of like, yes, we have been through this, but we got through it, but this is how we got through it. So sometimes, again, you gotta be real with that part too. Yeah. Go ahead, sis.
One of the things I was gonna say is like, God really does honor your yes. He honors your obedience. And I'll tell you, when we talk about, you know, trials creating patience and perseverance in somebody, I'll tell you right now, after our rough patch, there is not a shadow of a doubt of what unconditional love looks like in this marriage. There is no doubt that my husband loves me. And do you feel the same way? There's no doubt. There's no doubt that I love him. You know what I'm saying? And when we talk about coming out the fire as pure gold, you know, now we still have little quarrels and qualms, you know what I'm saying? However, we are so much better for like God working stuff for your good. Like we are, all three of us, all three couples are testimonies of God working things out for your good. What the enemy made to destroy and kill y'all and break y'all apart, God made you us stronger for it. And I mean, and even the fact that God even provides life, new life, after you going through a rough patch, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, even right after our rough patch, we have been praying and trying to get pregnant for a long time. And once we came out of our rough patch, I got pregnant, like, you know, quickly after we got through that together. And so I'll say that as far as the healing process, it's worth it. You know what I'm saying? If there's purpose, and we're going to talk about, there's a video that's going to come out in a few weeks about purpose and vision in your marriage. But when you hold tight to that, and you know, you're willing to go through those rough patches, the healing that takes place and the transformation that takes place in your marriage, you thought you loved the person on your wedding day, and you didn't think you could love them no more, and you just grow 20-fold in your love. You know what I'm saying? And so Terry, I just want you to know, man, I am so grateful to the Lord that he sent me you, that he ordained you for me, and that we are able to grow together, because it's just such a beautiful thing. And I also feel like within marriage and even with children, you're able to see another form of God and unconditional love and experience that here on earth with your spouse. And that's just such a blessing to be able to experience that in the way in which that we have and that we will continue to do. So I know I'm getting long-winded, I'm getting emotional, but I mean, I am just so grateful. I'm so grateful for where we are right now.
Me too. And I'm gonna add a little bit to it that also when God put us through those situations or the stuff that we gotta fight out of and become better for it, it's for us to like build. So if something like that ever come up again, it's like dead or automatically. So like stuff like that, I appreciate that, the fight that we have to go through so we don't have to go through it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
I will take us home.
yeah, so I just Chris said that he don't have anything.
Wait, I think we're starting. What'd you say?
No. You can go ahead.
You can go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, because we're gonna take it home. We're gonna take them to the exit.
All right. No, I was just gonna say the common denominator with all three couples is that we keeping God at the forefront. Yeah. And long as he continues to stay at the head of our relationships, we already won. Right. All we got to do is just continue to keep putting in the work. But go ahead, 18.
For sure. I think you know, Will and Jada did it again. Look at how they helped the coach again. Go Will. Go Jada. No, but I will say, you know, in all of this, it's important to not blame the other person, you know, for something that they may not be responsible for. And that's one of the other things I think from the video that I appreciated. She didn't say this was your fault because you did this or that. And he didn't say this is your fault. You know, they own what they had to own. And that's what's ultimately going to start that healing process. You have to accept responsibility. KP, that healing is not pretty. That changed everything for me. And Rebecca, you said, you accidentally said pace when you meant to say place. But pace and place is everything in a race. You know what I'm saying? And you know that. Like, you got to be where you're supposed to be and move how you're supposed to move. Yep. And if you have endurance, then that's how you're going to be able to make it around that track.
Yes. And for me, as far as the healing, because you guys cover a lot of awesome points, but for me, the biggest thing is forgiveness. A lot of people in relationships, you know, whether they're successful or not, some people still do not know how to forgive, not only the other person in the relationship, but themselves. And it's easy to say, and by no means sis is like anything, you know, as far as counseling, but the whole wave now is counseling. But I have also heard people who say, oh, I haven't went to one yet. So this culture saying mental health and getting it together, but you're not doing it. You're not figuring out how to heal for real. You're not figuring out how to forgive yourself first. And then the other, that is what really, really needs to take place in any relationship, but especially in our marriages. And to forgive, what forgiveness looks like, it's not just like, oh, I forgive you and it's done. It takes that time. It does look ugly. You know, has to do with your pace and how you get through it. And I think if you can take time by time, you know, deal with your emotions, that has to be involved with forgiveness. And once you get to a point where you can finally release this thing that has hurt you and vice versa, what has hurt that person, I think you can finally like breathe deep and say, I forgive you, and then move on, look forward, progress forward, not backward. You will never get anywhere looking back and bringing up old stuff, you know? So with that being said, you know, like Kanisha said, we said this from a TMP perspective. We wanted to give y'all healing. We wanted to give y'all an inside scoop of what it really looks like in marriage. It's not bad every day.
Right.
It's not, you know, snot coming down your nose, you know, skid marks on your face. It really is not that. And if it is that every day, maybe you should, you know, check some things out. But for the most part, marriage is a beautiful thing, you guys. Marriage is a beautiful thing. A union with somebody is so beautiful. I can't even describe it anymore. And when you really have a true union where you communicate, you heal one another, you heal yourselves, and you are able to be progressive, it can really be unstoppable. So we just want to thank y'all for tuning in this week.
Yeah.
Next week is going to be our submission video.
Hey.
So check that out. But in the meantime, check this video out, share it with others, like, comment, subscribe, you know, go to YouTube, share it, go to Facebook, share it, all of that. Thank you guys so much for your support. Love y'all.
Peace.
Thank y'all. Bye. Love y'all.
I go right to the sky and bring it back to you. I wanna live, I wanna die with you. Just say the word and watch how all your dreams come true.